welcome back. Hope you had a fantastic time in your team time discussing the implications of this morning's sessions on your children's ministry. And we're into our first round of electives with Tim and Shell Perris. Now, Tim and Shell are the founders of Imagine Ministries, Imagine for Schools, and Alive events for families. They've got so many years of children's ministry experience. Shell is part of the Limitless Kids team as well, overseeing our children's ministry venues at Limitless Festival. And most importantly of all, they have 4 young kids of their own. So they're coming at this conversation today from a number of really important angles. I know it's going to be so helpful to us because they're talking about be real, about how you feel, emotional well-being for children. Enjoy the session.
Hello, it's great to be with you today as part of Oxygen. My name is Tim.
And I'm Shell, and we have got 4 children between the ages of 9 and 4, and we live near Malvern in Worcestershire.
We both head up an organisation called Imagine for Schools. We go into schools working with children and staff and families around the areas of resilience, growth mindset, identity, emotional resilience and well-being.
We also head up...
What do you head up, Shell?
We also head up Imagine Ministries, which is home of Alive Family Worship, and I'm part of the Limitless Kids National Leadership Team. So I guess everything that we do is about working with children and families, and we've just got a real heart to help people be everything that God has created them to be.
Absolutely. We've called the talk today, Be Real About How You Feel. And this is about how we as adults can be with our children or walk with our children and help our children process their emotions, whether this is our children at home or the children that we're going to be working with in churches or small groups.
As you can see, we've set up our kind of little home studio as if we were running our own chat show, because we just want it to be really informal. We have not got it together by any stretch of the imagination, and we're on a journey with all of this too. But we just thought that it would be great to share some of our insight and top tips and thoughts and ideas so that we can help you as you lead your children through their emotions.
As part of Imagine for Schools, we have developed a course called Navigate, which is now in lots of schools up and down the country. It's a video-based resource and it's helping staff to work with their children around these areas of emotional resilience and well-being. Some of the content that we're going to be looking at today is content that we know is working with our children in their schools.
So we're going to talk about 3 different things today. First of all, we're going to look at what are emotions. Then we're going to look at validation in the valley, which we'll explain more about as we do that. And then we're going to share 3 top tips, or 3 steps, if you like, that will help you to talk to children about their emotions and the way they feel. The first question that we're going to look at today is, what are emotions? I think we often make the mistake of thinking that children are born with this ability to be able to talk about how they feel and express how they feel and know exactly how they feel. But I don't think that's true. I think it takes a lot of time and energy and effort from our part to teach children about emotions and to teach children about how to deal with those emotions and process those emotions and be comfortable with how they feel. Do you remember these little toys?
I do remember those.
That we used to get in party bags
Yeah.
when we were children. And they're little pop-up toys. And they do this. They spring up. And sometimes that's what happens with our emotions. They just pop up and spring up. Sometimes we're expecting them and other times we're not.
I think a lot of this is about being intentional with our children and keeping that topic of conversation on emotions. And it's helping our children to be aware of their emotions too. In fact, let's be honest, it's about helping us as adults and parents be aware of our emotions too. One great little exercise that we like to do is to talk about thumbs up emotions, thank you very much, and thumbs down emotions. Thumbs up emotions are those emotions that help us feel good or make us feel good or have us feeling good. Thumbs down emotions are those emotions that maybe don't feel quite so good.
Bit uncomfortable.
A bit uncomfortable. Give your children a list of emotions and have them put them into 2 different groups. Thumbs up emotions and thumbs down emotions. And actually what quite often happens is the children want a third group, because actually really when we start to think about this and when we start to talk about this, loads of emotions can be both.
Yeah,
sometimes they can be thumbs up and sometimes they can be thumbs down.
Well, it's like fear. So fear can be a really awful emotion, like a thumbs down emotion, because it makes you feel frightened and afraid and scared. We don't like the way that it makes us feel. But equally, it can be a great emotion because it keeps us safe. So fear is what tells us that something might be dangerous or it might not be the right thing to do, and actually keeps us safe. So it is in that third group that is thumbs up and thumbs down. And there's lots of other emotions that fit into that third group too.
Yeah, I mean, pride, I was thinking about this the other day. Pride is sometimes, I mean, we want our children to be proud of who they are and their achievements. But then, of course, we can be too prideful. In fact, the Bible tells us not to be too prideful. Yeah. So these emotions, and the point of this is not to help children to definitively define this is a thumbs up and this is a thumbs down emotion. Actually, the conversation and discussion that you'll have is the power in that kind of exercise. And I quite like being playful with it. So when children are very black and white and it's these are the good ones, these are the bad ones, these are the thumbs up, these are the thumbs down, play a bit of devil's advocate and talk about, well, actually fair, is it really that thumbs down or can it be good as well?
Yeah, that's really good. I think a really important thing to think about as well is that God has made us to have emotion and to have feeling. And emotions and feelings are normal, natural. They're part of who we are. They're part of life. They're an essential part of life. I mean, God hasn't created us to be like a piece of cardboard or a robot that just doesn't feel anything. He's made us to be emotional beings. And so we have to discover that for ourselves, but then we have to help our children to discover that and to explore that as well. I mean, the Bible is full, isn't it, of people who experienced all kinds of different emotions and had different, what's the word I'm looking for? Different responses to those emotions, you know. So have a look in the Bible, have a look at some of those Bible stories and those Bible characters that show those different emotions actually taking place.
Yeah, and it's really important to help children recognise that no emotion is wrong. I think we can sometimes feel thumbs down emotions and we maybe don't want to feel those emotions for too much longer. But actually, if that's what we're feeling, that's what we're feeling. Yeah. And we need to make that okay for that child to feel that. And again, God has made us who we are. I mean, and He's made us in His image. So if we can feel thumbs down emotions of fear, of anger, of disgust, and if we can feel thumbs up emotions, well, actually, these are emotions that God has created. And this is something that we need to start to help children to recognise that is okay.
I mean, take me and Tim, for example. We are completely different, aren't we? I am far more emotional than you are.
I think it's fair to say.
And our children, our 4 children, they're all boys, but they're all kind of different in their approach to emotions and how much they feel or how much they don't feel and where they're at on that spectrum of emotional intelligence. And obviously that's an age thing as well. So let's just not be afraid to talk about emotions. Let's just not be afraid to explore them and dive into that world, because actually being able to talk about emotions as a younger child will stand them in good stead for the future.
I once saw somebody talk about the heartbeat of life and how often when you look at, if you were to map out your emotions in life or even within a day, you obviously have the ups and you have the downs, and that's okay. You know, it's okay to have those thumbs up emotions and the thumbs down emotions. And we have the ups and the downs. But what society quite often encourages us to do is to, don't get too excited or don't be too sad, don't cry in front of me, for goodness sake. And actually we end up flatlining. We end up being encouraged to not show our emotions or not be able to talk about our emotions. And if it was a heartbeat, of course, that would be flatlining.
Yeah, and you definitely wouldn't be alive.
You wouldn't.
So are you saying that emotions keep us alive?
I absolutely think that we feel most alive when we are working and recognising our emotions, whether that's a positive emotion, and even if that's a negative thumbs down emotion. I think that's part of being alive, yeah.
So there you go, food for thought. We're now going to talk a little bit about validation in the valley.
This is all about challenge and the challenges that we can go through in life and the challenges that our children can go through in life. And it's often in those challenges that our emotions are most at the forefront.
There's a great verse in the Bible in Hosea chapter 2 verse 15, and it says, "I will transform the valley of trouble into a gateway of hope." I love that so much.
There's a great concept called peak to peak, which goes a little bit like this. We stand on one peak and we're trying to get to that next peak, whatever that challenge is, whatever that thing is that we're trying to achieve, or something that we may be having to go through.
Like a goal or something.
It could be a goal, or it could be something that's just happening to us and we're trying to get to that next peak. And if we're honest, what we really want is just to be able to step to that next peak, or walk across the bridge, have somebody build a bridge for us.
Or for somebody to take us off that peak and drop us onto the next one.
To pick us up and just put us on that next peak. But as we know, in order to get to that next peak, we're going to have to go through the valley. And the great thing is, that valley is actually where we learn about ourselves.
It's the gateway of hope.
It's the gateway of hope. It's in that valley that we learn about ourselves, that we develop. And actually, if we're honest, when we get to that next peak, if we hadn't first gone through that valley, we wouldn't feel that same sense of achievement.
Do you remember that walk that we went on as a family? It was a few years ago now.
We've done lots.
We have done lots of walks.
We've done lots the last few months.
We have actually. But we did a walk and it was up what seemed like a mountain but was actually a big hill in Simmenjat.
Simmenjat.
And we had the 4 children. They were younger than they are now. And we were at the bottom of this big hill that seemed like a mountain. And we had all the moans and groans. Oh, do we have to go on a walk? Oh, do we have to climb a mountain? Oh, it's too hard. It's really difficult.
Well, just you.
It's just me. No, it wasn't. It was the kids more than me. But there was a real sense of, we felt like we were having to drag the kids up. And there was times when we felt like giving up, didn't we? We just wanted to turn around and go back to the car. But we were like, no, we've come here. We're going to get to the top of this hill, to this peak. And you know, when we did, do you remember the kids' faces? Like, they were just lit up when they saw the view from the top and they saw how far they'd come and they looked back down at the valley. They had such a sense of achievement and they were all arms in the air going, yes, we've done it, we've done it, we've done it. And you know, they wouldn't have had that if we'd have chosen to given up and we'd have chosen to give in to those moans and those groans and those things that were overwhelming us at the time.
Or carried them and picked them up.
Yeah, or carried them and picked them up and done it all for them. They just wouldn't have had that sense of achievement, and we wouldn't have had that sense of achievement, and we wouldn't have had that moment of joy where we looked at their faces and just saw the joy and delight that they had because they'd reached that peak.
Yeah, and so being with our children, it's not about pushing them into the valley and just let them get on with it and go learn about life. Actually, it's about walking with them through that valley, and it's how we can be with them and how we can help them to do certain bits. And there might be bits that we do need to pick them up and carry them. There's nothing wrong with that, of course, but this is about not doing it all for them. And it's the same with emotions, and it's the same with the emotions that they'll be feeling when they're going through the challenges. I mean, let's be honest. This last 6 months has been a challenge for the whole world. It's going to be a challenge for us as parents, and it's been a challenge for our children in certain times. And actually, how we walk with our children through that, and I don't think we've got it right sometimes, or quite often maybe, but how we walk with our children through that is crucial. And it's about helping them to get to that next peak, or those mini peaks, because of course there's many peaks. How they get to those next peaks with that sense of achievement of, I've done this and I've learned something about myself in this.
And also that sense of, when I'm faced with another peak later on in life, I've got more confidence to be able to be in the valley and climb to that next peak because I've done it before. And that's really, really important. But as parents and kids leaders, actually what we want to do is we want to pick our kids out of the valley. We see them in the valley, we see them struggling, we see them overwhelmed with emotion, and all we want to do is pick them up and put them on that next peak. But actually that's doing them such a disservice. That's robbing them from an opportunity to grow and learn something. And so in the valley, it's really important that we are with them, that we walk with them, and that we validate them.
Yeah. So we've called this section Validation in the Valley, because there's one tool which we have found extremely useful to keep reminding each other about, because we don't do this very well quite often. And this is about validating the emotion. And actually, whether this is working with children or working with adults, or actually spouse to wife or whatever, we often don't validate each other very well on our emotions. There's a fantastic film, I don't know if you've seen it, called Inside Out. It's a Disney film. It makes me cry every time in at least 5 different places. But there's a part, so the film is basically about this little girl, I think she's 10 or 11, and the characters in her head, or the emotions in her head of fear and joy and sadness are characterised. So there's characters. And there's this one particular scene where joy and sadness have got lost. And they come across Bing Bong, who is the little girl's imaginary friend. And Bing Bong is in a state, because the little girl is about to forget him. And so he's getting all emotional, and he knows the way to where the train stop is that they need to be getting to. And Joy, who up to this point has ruled the ship. She's been in charge. Yeah. You know, this 10-year-old girl, Joy has been in charge. Sadness has just been this really annoying character. And Joy tries to cajole Bing Bong along by saying things like, "Oh, come on, it'll be fine. Just tell us how to get to the next train station." Making funny faces. Let's play a game. Let's do this. Literally trying to drag Bing Bong along, and Bing Bong is not moving. So here's the thing: when our children are in the valley, when they're at the bottom of that first, the drop, that's when they can often get stuck. That's where we can get stuck. We feel bad about ourselves. Oh, it's a challenge. We can't even imagine how hard it's going to be to get to the next peak, and we just feel all this this negative emotion, and we feel stuck, just like Bing Bong feels stuck in that film. Watch the clip. There should be a link to it at the bottom. Yeah. Watch the clip, because then sadness comes along, and all she does is sits down and says, "Yeah, it's sad. I can understand that."
And she says things like, "You must be feeling really sad.
Yeah.
You must be feeling like this. It must be so hard." And Bing Bong gets this opportunity. Sorry, babes. Okay. Bing Bong gets this opportunity to actually talk about how he feels, and he cries about it, and he lets all this emotion out, and he starts to process it all, and then he kind of pulls himself together and goes, "Right, I can keep on going now." And he gets up and he walks and takes them in the direction of the train station.
And that takes about 20 seconds.
Yeah, it's not long at all.
It's not long at all. And then Joy goes up to Sadness and says, "How did he do that?" And Sadness said, "Well, he was sad, so I just listened." And it's the pivotal point of the film where you recognise actually the benefit of sadness, or the benefit of being with somebody in their sadness. And that's the whole point of the character sadness, to be with them in that sadness. And it creates that movement. You see, within peak to peak, it doesn't matter where we are, whether we're at the top of one peak, the next peak, halfway down, on the next way up. I do think it's crucial though that we keep on moving. And often our children can just get stuck. And actually sometimes we don't help because we just don't listen to where they are, or we don't recognise where they are, and they just think that their emotion's wrong.
It's things like, isn't it? Like, I think about being a mum, and I think about what I've done with our children, and we, one of them falls over and they really hurt themselves. And sometimes you go, "Oh, come on, it doesn't matter, get back up, let's keep going. And actually, sometimes they just need you to go, "Oh, sweetheart, did that really hurt?" And rather than jolly along and try to fix it, they just want you to be with them in that moment, or something really sad's happened to them, or somebody said something mean to them at school. And sometimes you want to say, "Oh, it doesn't matter, just keep going. Oh, it's all right, just smile through it." And actually, they just want you to be with them and validate how they feel, even if what you think they feel is insignificant. Like, no feeling and no emotion is insignificant, because whatever a person is feeling is real for them at that time and needs to be listened to and needs to be validated.
And I think that's a crucial thing about fixing, because we often think we need to fix. I remember with us, there's been lots of times in our relationship where I'm a fix-it kind of guy, and sometimes you might be upset about something or emotional, whatever it might be, and I just want to fix it.
And I'm like, "Don't you fix it! I need you to listen."
Validate me. But if I'm honest, I want to fix it because it's inconvenient. That emotion is inconvenient. I mean, how many times with my own children, with our own children, has there been an emotion and it's just inconvenient for them to be thinking this because we're in a rush to go somewhere or we're trying to get out of the house for school, and that emotion is inconvenient. And so to fix it, I think it is a quick way to do it. But in that fixing, I don't validate. And I think the other thing as well is we're not comfortable with the emotion sometimes.
Yeah.
And if our child is sad, we don't want them to be sad. So we can sometimes feel ourselves that they're not sad by think I'll be fine, let's just keep going.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Do you know, I think it's really important to understand that Jesus doesn't always fix things for us. He often allows the situations that we go through in life to shape us and grow us and help us to learn something that is going to be beneficial for us as we move forward. And so let's try and be like Jesus. I know it's a bit of a cliche, but let's be like Jesus. Let's not just fix things straight away and go into a fix-it mentality, but let's give our children the opportunity to grow and to learn something that will make a big difference to their life in the future.
We're now going to introduce you to a 3-step process that we hope you're going to find really useful as you walk with your children through their emotions. Step 1 is called Be Aware. We've actually already talked a lot about this. This is about helping your children to be aware of their emotions, talking them through their emotions and just keeping it on the agenda. I think it's crucial that we don't just keep asking our children, how are you? How are you feeling? How did that make you feel? Because, well, certainly with our children, after about 3 times, they'll get bored of that.
It's like when they go, why, all the time, and it does your head in.
Yeah, it's a bit like after school when you say, what have you done at school today? Oh. It's like, well, nothing. So it's about finding ways other than just saying, and how are you feeling?
Do you know what actually will really help you if you've not heard about it already? So I've been involved with a couple of other people from the Limitless Kids team in writing a new resource called Feel Real. And we've written this resource because we recognise that at this time in life, after lockdown, in the state that we're in as a world, that children are probably going to want to talk about how they've been feeling and emotions that they've experienced, because it's been a very, very different and challenging season and continues to be a challenging season. So we've written Feel Real as a resource to help kids leaders and parents to talk to their children about different emotions. There are 6 emotions that we look at in this first series, and the resource basically is looking at the particular emotion, explaining what it is and associating it with similar emotions. Then there's 4 different stories from the Bible where characters in the Bible experience that particular emotion. So there's 1 Old Testament, 1 New Testament, and 2 others that you can use to read the story through and then talk about that particular emotion in the context of that story. Then there's discussion points and discussion questions. There's power verses that the kids can stand on and hold on to. And then there's a takeaway, so something that they can put into practice as a result of going through that particular Feel Real emotion. It's absolutely brilliant. And there's also some key rings that are free, which is amazing, that you can order off the Limitless website. And the key rings are 6 little tags with all of the power verses from the 6 sessions in the first series that children can take and put on their school bag or on their door key, or whatever it is, hang it up somewhere that they can read it and always have access to those power verses that will help them with those particular emotions that are being looked at in the first series. So check it out on the Limitless Kids website, because you'll be able to find out lots more information, but it's called Feel Real, and I would highly, highly recommend it for you to use with your children in your groups.
Absolutely. So step 1, be aware, and anything that you can find, that resource in particular, that helps your children to talk and think and process their emotions.
Yeah.
Shell, do you want to do step 2 and 3 and play with some Duplo?
Why not? So step 2 is break it down. Now I need to move my cup of tea for this one, because here I have a Lego wall. Duplo wall, sorry. And imagine that this wall represents maybe a thumbs down emotion, something like fear or worry or anxiety. Now, to take fear as a whole big thing like that can often feel really overwhelming. But if we break it down into smaller pieces, and obviously you can be really creative with this if you want to be, to break it down into smaller pieces, all of a sudden makes it feel a little bit more manageable. So rather than having one big chunk of fear to deal with, you've now got lots of little pieces of fear that might seem a bit easier and not as scary, if that makes sense. And you can use that with all kinds of different emotions, with thumbs down emotions and with thumbs up emotions. But it's all about not dealing with it as one big thing, but breaking it down into smaller, more manageable pieces so that children feel they can go through each bit at a time.
And just to clarify, so are we saying that each bit might be an experience that's led to that emotion?
It could be, yeah, it could be. I mean, obviously, the chances of feeling one emotion as a big chunk is very unlikely. If you're feeling fear, for example, there might be some worry in there. There might be some anxiety in there. There might be all kinds of different things. There could be disappointment in there. There could be sadness in there. It's likely to be a whole lot of emotion. So rather than dealing with it as a one big thing that feels like far too big and overwhelming, break it down so that it helps the children to deal with it little bit by little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I think in that as well, it's really important to come back to the thing that it's a process.
Yeah.
You know, it's not something that happens overnight, particularly if it's, you know, a really big emotion that's been there for a long time, but maybe the child hasn't been able to identify it or name it or be aware of it. You know, so you've made them aware of it and then help them to break it down so that it's more manageable.
Cool. So step 1, be aware. Step 2, break it down.
And step 3 is be kind. So when we're looking at emotions and when we're talking about emotions, it can be really hard work. I don't know about you, but sometimes if I'm having to deal with something like an emotion or how I'm feeling about something, you can just feel exhausted after you've kind of spent time talking about it or processing it. So I think it's really important that we give our children time to be kind to themselves. So things like having a hot chocolate or, you know, playing a game or doing a craft or something that is different from what you've just been doing. You know, and again, you can be as creative as you want to be with that. If you're at home and this is something that you're doing with your children, you could go for a walk or you could play in the garden or you could, you know, just again, have a hot chocolate together or watch a film or whatever it is. Just do something that will give children time to be kind to themselves. If you're doing it with a kids group, do the same thing, you know, put on a film, have a hot chocolate all together, play a game of tag or hide and seek or do a craft or something that will just take their minds off it and give them a bit of downtime after all of the processing and the breaking it down and the being aware stuff.
And I think this also speaks a little bit to it's okay to feel what you're feeling, to be kind at that level.
Yeah.
I know our older children, as they've started to get more articulate, they'll say things like, well, I shouldn't be thinking this, or I shouldn't be feeling this. And they're getting really worried that they're feeling something that they shouldn't be feeling.
Yeah.
Where's that come from? Because actually we need to help them to recognise that, okay, they might want to move on from that, but actually where they are is okay.
Yeah. And when you're dealing with this stuff, it won't be a nice, neat package that is, you know, you open and then you put the lid back on. That it doesn't always work like that. You know, it is a journey and it is a process. So just go with it and don't be afraid of going with it. You know, and each child will be different in how they feel emotion and how they express emotion. So again, just be aware of that and give them opportunities to talk, but then to be kind to themselves.
So step 1, be aware. Step 2, break it down. And step 3, be kind. There's one more thing that we'd like to talk to you about before we finish today. And we're going to have a bit of fun with this one, aren't we?
Yes.
So you'll see a picture on your screens. And this picture has been a bone of contention between me and Shell for quite a long time. Because here's the thing. We both see different colours. And I don't just mean different shades. We both see completely different colours.
And this isn't just us two. This is like a worldwide phenomenon.
I'm sure you've seen something like this before, but have a chat with the people that you're with right now and ask them what colour do they see. So shall I absolutely categorically know that these trainers, because this is what I can see, are turquoise and grey?
Well, I categorically disagree with you, because when I look at the pair of trainers, I see pink and white. What do you see when you look at the trainer? Do you see turquoise and grey, is it?
Yeah.
Or do you see pink and white? Turquoise and grey, or pink and white?
Now, psychologists have said that those who see turquoise and grey, it's something about intelligence and beauty.
Is it?
Yeah.
Right. I'm quite sure I believe that.
Now, you will notice that Shell is wearing some glasses. Shell, why are you wearing some huge glasses?
Well, apart from keeping the sun out of my eyes, I thought that we could introduce the next little thing that we're going to look at.
Okay, go for it.
Well, I don't think we should say anymore. I think we should just show them this clip, and these will become very apparent.
So what is this clip?
It's a clip from Navigate, which is the Imagine for Schools resource that we talked about earlier on, that's in primary schools across the UK at the moment. And yeah, let's say no more. Have a look at this.
Oh, I'm so sad. I had such a sad day today.
But we went to the park and played hide and seek. It was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, but it was a bit too cold for me, and the swing was broken.
It was a bit windy, but the sun was shining, and the swing next to the broken swing was working, and I had fun on the slide, and the roundabout too. I really enjoyed it.
I suppose. I just didn't like it when the other girl was talking to me. I don't know her very well, and she just started talking to me.
Are you kidding me? I love making new friends. Making new friends is fun. Do you know what? I think you need to wear these glasses. It might help you to see things in a different way.
Oh, wow! I can see things in a much more joyful way now. It didn't really matter that the swing was broken, and it was a bit windy. And I guess making new friends is pretty cool. We did have fun, didn't we? I need to view life through these glasses much more often.
We hope you enjoyed that. Essentially, what we'd like to pull out from this last part of the talk is the idea of choice. Emotions can spring up and can come from nowhere seemingly, but we can't live thinking that we are totally at the whim of our emotions. Yes, no emotion is wrong, and yes, we need to be validated, and we need to validate our children in the emotions that they are feeling, but we also need to build in this element of choice.
We really hope that you've enjoyed today's session called Be Real about how you feel. If you've got any questions, please just get in touch through the Limitless Kids website. Before we finish, let's pray together. Lord Jesus, we want to thank you that you have given every single one of us emotions, that you've given us the ability to feel certain things and certain ways. Lord, I pray that you will teach us to help our children to talk about how they feel, to talk about their emotions. And Lord, I pray that you'll help us and use us to journey with them and to guide them. Lord, I pray that you'll help us to talk about the way that we feel, to talk about the things that are thumbs up emotions for us and our thumbs down emotions too. Lord, I pray that we'll get better about talking about how we feel so that we can equip our children to be better at talking about the way that they feel. And thank you, Lord, that in all of this, we can always talk to you about absolutely anything. Thank you that you're with us, that you are here for us, and that you love us more than we could possibly imagine. In the name of Jesus, amen.